Ready to soundtrack your summer? With Red Bull Summer All Day Play, you choose a playlist that fits your summer vibe the best. Are you a festival fanatic, a deep end DJ, a road dog, or a trail mixer? Just add a song to your chosen playlist and put your summer on track. Red Bull Summer All Day Play. Red Bull gives you wings. Visit redbull.com/brightsummer to learn more. See you this summer.
So good, so good, so good.
Everything you want for summer is at Nordstrom Rack stores now, and up to 60% off. Stock up and save on the brands you love like Vince, Sam Edelman, Frame, and Free People. Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. Today's episode is sponsored by Duke Energy. Today, I'm joined by my Charlotte Observer colleague, Mary Ramsey, who covers politics in Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. Charlotte and Mecklenburg County issues have been a pretty significant focus this legislative session and will be this week as well, both by topic and lawmakers. We're going to start talking about a House Oversight hearing that will happen on Thursday. Mary will be here in Raleigh to cover that, about the Dominique Moody case. So, Mary, if we can start by talking about who she was and why this has gotten the attention of the General Assembly.
Yes, so Dominique Moody was a 6-year-old girl here in Charlotte, and she was found deceased at her aunt's home in East Charlotte back in December. She showed signs of severe malnourishment. She weighed about 27 pounds at the time of her death, and according to court records, also showed other signs of abuse. And since then, there have been reports from the Observer and other local media outlets that police and social services had been called to the home before, but that the child remained in the home and ultimately the worst possible outcome. 3 women, including the child's aunt, have been charged in the case, and that's proceeding through the legal system, but this has triggered a number of investigations from the State Department of Health and Human Services, as well as now the Oversight Committee in Raleigh.
So what can we expect? We got wind of this a little early. Representative Carla Cunningham, who was a Democrat, is now unaffiliated. She held her first press conference since leaving the Democratic Party. She was introduced by the Republican House Speaker's spokesperson that helped, set this up for her, because there isn't an unaffiliated caucus other than there are 2 unaffiliated lawmakers now. And she came out wanting to talk just about this, and really her big focus on this. And Representative Alan Chester is a Republican. Other Democrats and Republicans joined her, talking about Dominique Moody and what can be done. So now that this is happening, what can we expect from the hearing on Thursday?
Yeah, so there's sort of been 2 tracks so far in the legislature. Representatives Cunningham and Chester have introduced, and it's picked up a number of co-sponsors on both sides of the aisle, the Dominique Moody Act, which would establish a new team within state social services that would come into counties when they have sort of these higher risk or more complex child abuse cases to provide additional support to county social services. Then you have the investigative side of things. As you mentioned, the Oversight Committee had kind of been hinting they were going to look into this case, had started asking for records in the case leading up to the announcement that there's going to be this hearing. The hearing will feature Mecklenburg County Manager Mike Bryant, the Chief of Charlotte Mecklenburg Police, and some other county social services officials. And I expect a lot of the conversation will probably center on records in the case. This is something that media outlets here in Charlotte, including the Observer, have been pressing for since this child's death. And now state leaders are also pressing for more records. The response from the county has been that in collaboration with the district attorney's office, they don't want to release a lot of records because they don't want to jeopardize the case against the 3 women who have been charged in this child's death. But there are, of course, under state law, things that the county is required to release as public record, and also things that state legislators in theory have access to. So that's sort of been the biggest point of contention that I expect to come up. I also expect to hear a lot about the State Department of Health and Human Services investigation into this case. They released a letter to Mecklenburg County about 2 weeks ago now, announcing that they're putting the county on a corrective action plan because of issues they found within Mecklenburg Social Services as the result of looking into the Moody case, and because of what they saw in that case file, additional social services cases here in Mecklenburg. So expect the results of that investigation to come up too. And I think it'll be interesting to see what the tone of the hearing is. This is the second time this year that Mecklenburg County leaders have been brought in front of the House Oversight Committee. And I think a lot of observers in Charlotte were honestly kind of surprised by how conciliatory the tone was at the first oversight hearing that was focused on crime and public safety in Charlotte in the wake of the killing of Marina Zarutska on the city's light rail system. And other than the committee's questioning of Sheriff Gary McFadden, a lot of other Charlotte leaders was frankly a more friendly line of questioning than I think a lot of people were expecting. So I'm curious heading into this second hearing if we see a similar tone or if things are a little more contentious this time around.
Is there anything more you can tell us about this DHHS investigation?
Yes. So this letter, and I should note, it does not mention Moody by name, but it's pretty clear from the case details. It does disclose that this was review of the Moody case was sparked by the child's death by the state social services child fatality team, and they found multiple shortcomings, a lot of them stemming from the fact that this house had been reported before and not enough action was taken to protect this child, which then led the state to review a sample of about 100 other social services cases. And they found similar issues, things not being processed properly, things not being followed up on. So the county is now on a corrective action plan. That basically means they have to tell the state how they're going to fix those issues and keep reporting back to the state about the progress they're making until the state says, okay, you've gotten up to snuff.
Do you think that through the DHHS or the legislature getting involved, or is this something where people are going to be disciplined in any way, or people or be fired, or, is it kind of remains to be seen what the end result of this will be as far as, things that have already happened?
Yeah. So with regard to the DHHS investigation, basically where we are now, the county is developing a plan to address the state's concerns. If they submit it and the state says this is a good plan, the county will keep following up, reporting on progress until the state says they're up to snuff. If the county isn't meeting the state's expectations, the state could step in and take over more authority over Mecklenburg County's social services. The director of Mecklenburg County's Child, Family, and Adult Services Department, who was in charge at the time of Moody's death, has since left her post. Both she and the county said that resignation was unrelated to the Moody case, but did not provide another reason. So that was something that kind of drew some attention, despite, again, her and the county saying it was unrelated. So we've got an interim director in that post now. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the long-term ramifications are. County Manager Mike Bryant has been in office for about a year now. He took over from someone who'd held that post for more than a decade. So this is really kind of one of the first big public challenges that he's faced. So I'm curious to see how he navigates this Thursday's hearing, as well as the situation more broadly. If the county commission chooses to take any action. So far, they've been pretty mum about this, citing privacy law and the need to not jeopardize the criminal case, basically saying that, whatever needs to be done to improve the system, they'll get done. But it'll be curious if and when more comes out, if they take a harsher tone with regard to any individuals.
What is it like after the fact? Because here, at the legislative building, I see what happens when they go home. Do they talk about it at Charlotte City Council? Mecklenburg County commissioners? How do they talk about the legislature, or is it not mentioned again, at local meeting level or anything else?
I think broadly speaking, there is often frustration from Charlotte area leaders with the legislature, stemming from, the whole great state of Mecklenburg, great state of Charlotte trope that's persisted for years, this idea that Raleigh kind of looks down its nose at Charlotte, or, sees Charlotte as kind of a rival. Recently this has come up a lot, especially with regard to the property tax cap that's being considered in Raleigh. The county commission has expressed a lot of concern and frustration with that. It's budget season, so I've been hearing a lot of complaints about the lack of funding for teacher pay that Mecklenburg County gets from the state. Mecklenburg County schools are part of a pretty small group of counties who don't get supplemental teacher pay assistance from the state, which means the county has to pay out even more to pay teachers. That's something the county commission always loves to point out during budget season. So it's oftentimes a tone of frustration.
All right, we need to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about property taxes and other inner Charlotte to Raleigh politics. We'll be right back.
This message is sponsored by Duke Energy. Duke Energy is meeting North Carolina's growing energy demand through a stronger, more resilient grid. That's why we're making strategic infrastructure improvements and implementing self-healing technology to avoid outages and minimize disruptions, all while keeping costs as low as possible. To learn more, visit duke-energy.com/NCFuture. This message is sponsored by Duke Energy.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with Mary Ramsey. Right before the break, Mary was talking about kind of what Charlotte and Mecklenburg think of the legislature here in Raleigh and Raleigh versus Charlotte rivalry. I will attest that, of course, I live in Raleigh. I think Raleigh is better than Charlotte. That's required. I mean, everybody has their city loyalty. Let's talk first about property taxes before we touch on a couple other things. What's going on with property taxes there? And also in light of that, there's going to be a constitutional amendment on ballots this fall, asking people if they want the General Assembly to instill levy limits, not an amount, just do they want them to do it? And it's important to note they could do it anyway, but they're also putting this to the voters if they want them to do it.
Yeah, so good news for Mecklenburg County residents. The county's budget for fiscal year 2027 does not include a property tax increase. The city of Charlotte's budget does. So for a lot of people who live in Charlotte, they will see their bill getting bigger, but only from the city side, not the city and the county side. But in the long term, county commissioners have expressed a lot of concern with this property tax amendment, saying that it could really handcuff the county in future years. They like to point out that Mecklenburg County's rate is well below the current cap and relatively low compared to some other parts of the state, but warning that, especially if somewhere down the road there was another recession or other fiscal issues where the county was in need of bringing in more revenue, that this could create headaches. The county did increase property taxes last year and has warned that even though Mecklenburg is continuing to grow, that growth is slowing a bit, which means property tax revenue, just sort of natural growth from more people coming in to Charlotte and paying property taxes, is starting to slow too. So it'll be interesting to see sort of what the long-term ramifications are. And I would expect to definitely see county leaders as well as some city of Charlotte officials really coming out in opposition to this amendment, campaigning against it as we get closer to November.
Okay. One thing I want to go back to, we touched on a little bit at the beginning, is there are only two unaffiliated lawmakers in the entire General Assembly. They're both in the House, and they're both from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area. It's Representative Carla Cunningham, who we talked about some already, and Representative Nassif Majid. Both of them voted for both constitutional amendments on to the property tax levy limit, and then also lowering the income tax, the personal income tax rate down to 3.5%. Both of those will be on everyone who's listening on your ballots this fall in North Carolina. They both voted for those, and that's significant because constitutional amendments don't have to go to the governor. They just happen. If you pass it with 3/5, they were the necessary votes for that. And then they also voted to override in the House. The Senate hasn't done it yet. They might do it this week. This bill that would basically, doesn't involve North Carolina tax money. It's a federal tax break for donors to private school tuition. So that's the other factor with both of them. We've at the Ledge, we've been looking at, are they going to caucus with Republicans? Are they still going to come to Democrats? And House Minority Leader Robert Reeves, who's of course a Democrat, said that, we don't talk about caucus, but, we can see what they're doing when they all leave the floor to caucus. And so I guess 2 weeks ago, all the House Democrats left during a recess to caucus, and all the House Republicans left during a recess to caucus. And sitting there in the chamber still are Representatives Cunningham and Majid, who sit right next to each other. And they were having, I guess, their now, unaffiliated caucus of two. So that's kind of what our perspective here in Raleigh, seeing what's going on at the legislature. What about back in their districts now that they've switched and some time has passed? What are you hearing there about them?
Yeah, I think a lot of the focus has been on the votes that you mentioned. Obviously, their party switches got a lot of attention at the time, but in some ways it was more of a symbolic gesture. The fact that they went to unaffiliated rather than the Republican, the fact that, as you mentioned, thus far they have seemed to kind of just be their own caucus of two rather than going and caucusing with the Republicans. So these votes were really the first sort of tangible impact of the consequences of what happened last year and in the March primaries. Both Representative Cunningham and Majid are lame ducks now. They lost their primaries to Democratic challengers who were telling voters, hey, I'm going to be a quote unquote loyal Democrat. I'm going to defend Governor Josh Stein's veto. If you like Stein and you want to support his moves, then you vote for me, not them, because I'm going to side with them on vetoes. So all of that kind of coming home to roost now in this short window between when they lose their seats electorally and actually leave office.
Mm-hmm. And we'll see. So we're at now June 1st as we're recording this, and people listen to it on June 2nd or after. And we're maybe 2 weeks away from the state budget. Senate Leader Berger, House Speaker Hall already announced they have a framework, which is basically that they finally came to agreement on raises and taxes, and now have to fill in all the other stuff that's in a budget, which is quite a bit. Some will probably be similar to last year's budget proposals that didn't pass, but that's what we're waiting for as lawmakers have returned to Raleigh. We have a couple minutes left. I wanted to get to other big Charlotte news with the Charlotte mayor is leaving. So tell us what's going on with that.
Yes, so Mayor Vi Lyles, who is in her 5th term, she's the second longest serving mayor in Charlotte history, announced a few weeks ago that she plans to step down at the end of June. So now the city council is going through the process of finding an interim mayor to finish out her term, which will end in December 2027. The city council has agreed that they're going to put out a public application. So if you live in Charlotte and you're over 21 and you're a registered Democrat, fill out the application, see if you can get chosen. One interesting caveat that's come out in the last few days, Lyles has told council members that if they haven't appointed someone to finish out her term by June 30th, which is when she originally said she'd be resigning, she could stay in office past that date. Right now, the council is tentatively scheduled to vote about June 22nd. The only wrinkle in that could be pretty much everybody on council is thinking about running for mayor in 2027. So they're going to be hesitant to appoint someone from within that group of 11 because they don't want to give them the leg up of incumbency, which could sort of complicate who gets chosen and how long it takes them to pick. Mayor Pro Tem James Smudgy Mitchell has thrown his hat in the ring. Former Charlotte Mayor Jennifer Roberts has also publicly said she's interested. So a couple notable names who are already pitching themselves, and it'll be interesting to see who else comes out in these next few weeks and if they do get things wrapped up or if we get a little more Vi Lyles.
So when does her term end?
Her term would end in December of 2027. She was just reelected in November, so she's resigning less than halfway through her current term. And when she announced that move, she didn't provide any explanation other than saying that she wants to spend more time with her family. There have been, and I want to be sensitive in how I talk about this, there have been sort of private conversations going on amongst Charlotte politicos for a little while now about her health, some rumors that something may or may not be going on there. That none of that has been confirmed, but that has something that has been a conversation in political circles for a little while now. So, but she has not officially said anything other than she wants to spend more time with her family.
Okay. We are about out of time. Let's move on to our picks for headliner of the week. Mary, what's your headliner?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I'll be heading to Raleigh in a couple of days for that hearing, but also heading to town in July for a much lighter subject, getting to go see Noah Kahan's new tour. Really been enjoying his new album, The Great Divide, and excited to get to spend a fun evening with some friends at Carter Finley later this summer.
My headliner, I'm not a hockey fan, but it has to be the headliner of the week, the Carolina Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup final. So at the News and Observer and Charlotte Observer, we've got like all the coverage you could ask for, all about everything with the Stanley Cup. And then, of course, all of Mary's work in the state politics level, and her coverage of the House Oversight hearing this week is in both the Charlotte Observer and the News and Observer. All of our legislative coverage here in Raleigh is in both papers too. So be sure to keep up with everything that we're doing. All right, that's it for us today for the News and Observer and Charlotte Observer. I'm Dawn Vaughan with Mary Ramsey and producer Kevin Keister. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Under the Dome, sponsored by Duke Energy, and we'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Shop up to 40% off with minimum purchase and a free professional measure right now at Blinds.com. Plus, pay at your own pace starting at 0% APR with Affirm. Terms apply.